Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I want to start sharing good poetry. Wow, I feel like I can't speak today. I want to start sharing good Instagram poetry that I come across because most of Instagram poetry is pretty much bad. Um, so here's one I came across 2 days ago. Scroll. Trains screeching, cars honking. The Telbia rings. Really can't read today. The talbiyah rings loud in my head. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Here I am, my Lord, at your service. All day I work and play and love, my heart constantly circling. I work for you. I play for you. I love for you. The hours in my day are my Safa and Marwa. All day I run from my sins to good deeds, from anger to contentment, from bad character to comportment, from heedlessness to remembrance. I throw stones in the mirror, dashing all thoughts of the self and the ego. The Gemma is here, I see it clear. Don't need a passport to go, I climb on the plains of my nafs, stand on my prayer mat. The world asleep, I stand in prayer and plead and weep, the regrets deep. My Arafah is now, I prostrate and bow, don't need a visa to get here. The Haram is empty, they say Hajj is cancelled, but we Muslims, we are pilgrims for life. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have like poetry analysis or anything to talk about, but this is this is good poetry. I would share with you. I guess I can find random stuff here. Okay, this is some Islamic thing. Um, no, no, nope. Uh, why is there so much Islamic stuff here? Nope, no, no. Okay, like this. I don't know what this is supposed to be, but a lot of Instagram poetry is like this. This is like it's nice. Sure, it's a nice message. There is there's certainly a lot to explore there, but by no means would you call this poetry. Um, and this is all you find. The Islamic stuff is, I guess, a little bit more interesting because it, it relates with you at a deeper level. But even then, it's like here you talk a little to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and suddenly everything seems a little easier, a little softer, a little lighter. I mean, this is better than this. 'Cause this is there's no there are no like rhetorical devices being used here. At least here you have a little something, right? A little easier, a little softer, a little lighter. There's repetition. There is even some what do you call it? Alliteration when words have a similar sounding or they repeat a letter. Um, but yeah, I mean even this, I guess I don't know if this is meant to be poetry, or just like quotes. But even like so, a lot of poetry, or what's called poetry, and usually people are like, this is a poem from my book and whatever, and most of them are just like quotes. Um, it's like especially like this one here. There's nothing here. It's just it's a topic that you could create good poetry about. But then, if you look at it, there's like 40,000 likes, and it's very popular. I mean, this is a bit more visually interesting. So, um, okay, here, let's see this one. Empathy is being able to write a story where you are the villain in their story, but remain the hero in yours. Let's go back to the thing that we were reading before. and then you can appreciate how nice it actually is. Let's see, saved. All right, now let's take a look at this again. Right off the bat, you have imagery and you have sound. Trains screeching, cars honking. You're transported into um well, Mecca. Yeah, Mecca because you're doing Hajj. Or I mean, it can be Medina too, depending on what you're doing. But you're instantly, it's just like you're transported there, right? Train screeching. I mean, if you've been to Umrah or Hajj, then you can definitely relate. I've only been to Umrah, but even if you haven't, like you've seen videos of it, you've been on a train, probably you've been in traffic, so like it's right off the bat, it's engaging. Trains screeching, cars honking, and it's also simple imagery, right? Like you don't have to like do like cognitive gymnastics. Like the thing I read earlier, like empathy is about being able to write a story where you're a villain, uh, and إلى آخره. I didn't like. I would have to sit there and try to make sense of it, and I didn't want to do that. But here it's just like, it's a very easy, like you just kind of slip into it. And then she continues, the talbiyah rings loud in my head because people are doing Hajj. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, here I am, my Lord, at your service. And it's interesting, right? Like because when you mix more than one language, it makes the poem richer. Unless, of course, you don't know that language, then you're left wondering what that means. But she translates here, right? So even even if you don't know what that means, it's fine because she translates. She continues, all day I work and play and love my heart constantly circling. I work for you, I play for you, I love for you. I mean, you can see the repetition and like similarity in structure. And three is always um, a nice number if you want to repeat something. Over here we have all day I work and play and love. Again, three things. My heart constantly circling. And and that circling is kind of shown with the words, right? Like work, play, love. And then again, work, play, love. The hours in my day are my Safa and Marwa. All day I run from my sins to good deeds, from anger to contentment, from bad character to comportment, from lessness to remembrance. Safa and Marwa, you run between those two. And and she shows that while she's not actually there doing Hajj or Umrah, um, her like the hours her day is full of Safa and Marwa, right? From sins to good deeds, from well, it's an emotional Safa and Marwa because in one state you're in one situation you're at the peak of you know ghafla, and then you run the other way and you go back to God, and then you go the other way and you go back into heedlessness and sin, and then you go back, and so it's a constant shift of emotional states, and not just of ghafla and taqwa and like remembering God, but even anger to contentment. And contentment is interesting. I mean, I don't know what the opposite emotion to anger is. Somewhere I read that if you're angry, then shift to gratitude because the two of them can't um, exist together. Gratitude and contentment certainly share um, similarity because if you're content, then you're probably in a state of gratitude for what you have. Because if you're not content, then I guess you're in a state of greed, maybe. From bad character to comportment. I didn't know what meant. Comportment meant. I had to look it up. It means not composure, like um, behaving well, uh, basically having adab. So bad character to comportment, from heedlessness to remembrance. I mean, that's basically ghafla, right? From ghafla to dhikr. Um, good parallel with the sins to good deeds. And of course, like again, there's a repetition. It's not, you're not repeating the same thing, but it's a repetition of structure, like from this to that, from this to that, from this to that, 4 times, from this to that. Um, yeah, I throw stones in the mirror, and so she's kind of taking you through the journey of doing Hajj, like all the main pillars of what make Hajj, right? So throwing stones in the mirror, and well, in Hajj you should throw stones at the shaitan, but here the shaitan is yourself, dashing all thoughts of the self and the ego. The Jamra, I actually don't know what the Jamra is. Let me look that up. Oh, okay, that's, yeah, stoning the devil. The Jamra is here. I see it clear. Looking at yourself in the mirror, you are the devil. Um, yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because um, I mean, Hajj is a inherently spiritual thing. There are physical, there's lots of physical actions and acts of worship that you do, but um, it's very much so a spiritual journey. And here, there is no, there are no physical actions. Like there is no Safa Marwa, there is no stoning the Jamra or stoning the devil at the Jamra. I think again, is Jamra the location or is it the pillar? Stoning is part of the annual. Okay, what is Jamra? Jamarat is the plural of Jamra, meaning small stone or pebble. Okay. Um, refers to the 3 pillars at which pilgrims cast pebbles to reject sin and invoke Allah's strength. Okay. Um, so then they're the 3 pillars of the places where you do that. So yeah, there's no actual Jamra, but she sees it clearly. Um, and it's all of it is metaphorical and spiritual in nature, right? Um, from one emotional state to another emotional state, from battling or casting or rejecting not the devil but yourself, or your lower self, the nafsul amal bisu, the self that calls to evil, rejecting that, um, alongside with rejecting basically diseases of the heart, right? Takabbur, uh, arrogance, ujub, self interest, self um, absorbment, all of those things. Don't need a passport to go. I climb on the plains of my nafs. So it's, I mean, here she in the caption she says she wrote this in 2020. So obviously it was COVID. Um, but yeah, you don't need to, like, the journey within is readily accessible. You just have to go. You just have to turn inward. I climb on the plains of my nafs, right? The plains of Arafat. And it's interesting that she doesn't mention Arafat, and then like she doesn't say, like over here she says Safa and Marwa, and then she likens it to sins to good deeds, anger to contentment. But here she doesn't say I climb uh, Arafat. She just says I climb the plains of my nafs, and it's really nice because it's not. It just adds a layer of subtlety, and that's what makes poetry good. It's the whole thing of show don't tell. Um, although there's a very interesting video essay I watched at some point where it's like don't show, tell. I'm gonna have to watch it at some point because it was really interesting. Rewatch it. Um, there was something about the whole idea or notion of showing and not telling comes from I forget where it comes from, but it was like the dark side of the whole idea of show don't tell. Anyways, um, she climbs onto the mountain that are her nefs and stand on my prayer mat. The world asleep, I stand in prayer. Tahajjud time, right? And plead and weep. The regrets deep, and Tahajjud is very much a very like a time of deep. It's a deeply spiritual moment because there's quietude and it's a meditative state, but it's not just a meditative state because well, it is a dual state of you're looking and turning inward, but then you're also in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You're turning to God literally in prayer and conversing with him. Just as he in the hadith he asks, what's how does it go? Man yas'aluni fa'u'tiyah. Something along those lines. Like who will ask of me so I can give him? Who will man yastaghfiruni fa'aghfir lahu, who will seek forgiveness from me so I will forgive him. So there is you are alone, maybe physically, if you're in your room or something. Um, but you are with your nafs, and more importantly, if you're praying tahajjud, then you're in front of and with God. And COVID was a whole time of quarantine and people staying away from each other and for a lot of people they were stuck in their rooms for like rooms and houses for like months on end. And so um, an interesting thing here is even though she might be alone physically, she's not because in a sense she's with herself as a second person, right? Her ego or even her qareen. Um, I don't know what qareen translates to in English. Uh, Qareen in Islam. I don't know if there's like a one word translation. Uh, yeah, basically a shaitan that's with you all the time. So um, the the whole theme or the image of casting stones right at the Jamra, but there is no Jamra, only the self in the mirror. But we don't only have the self, right? We have an angel with us. We have the Qareen, which is shaitan. And so in a way, when you look at yourself, you're also looking at um, I guess what you could compare it to like the dark self, or in one of these psychological frameworks. Like, I don't know who it is, Freud, or um, any one of these. You can you've probably heard of it. The shadow, yes, the shadow self. Um, so it's kind of like that, right? So it's like it's you, uh, your shadow or your qareen, and then of course you're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you're praying tahajjud. My Arafah is now, and then she brings Arafah afterwards, right? Like I said, like she doesn't start with Arafah, she starts with a subtle way of saying this is Arafah, and then she says Arafah, my Arafah is now. I prostrate and bow. Don't need a visa to get here. Um, that's actually also interesting because when I read the first time, I said there, and I was like, no, it's here. Don't need a visa to get here. It's interesting for two reasons because she's talking about Mecca, and so you're thinking of a faraway place, so you think Arafah, you don't need to a visa to go there to get there. But she says my Arafah is now, right? It's about presence. And so she says, don't need a visa to get here because here is, I don't know if you could hear that noise from outside. But yeah, Arafah is now, and now is always accessible. You don't need to travel to get to the present moment. You just have to bring yourself to it. Um, and so and it's this like um, dual image or dichotomy of she's talking about a very far away place because she's not there, and then the the spiritual mirror of that, which is just all of these things happening inside of her or inside of you as you pray to Hedred and as you go out, as you go throughout the day, doing the daily tasks of living and going to work and going to school and whatever it is. It's like your pilgrimage, and she gets to that point right after, right? Is constantly happening. You're constantly in a between Safa and Marwa and stoning the devil and all of those things and making a sacrifice. The Haram is empty. They say Hajj is cancelled. And I just find this like there's a cube here, um, which I'm assuming represents the Kaaba, and it's pretty cool because it's empty. There's nothing surrounding it, and it's just a standalone floating by itself. They say Hajj is cancelled, but we Muslims, we are pilgrims for life. So pilgrimage is not limited to a physical journey, but it's a spiritual undertaking that you can do at any moment in time, and we do it constantly. That's that's the nature of it's nature of being human, right? Humans are always shifting between spiritual states and emotional states, moment to moment. That's why the qalb is called the qalb because it turns, it flips over. Um, uh, yeah, the qalb is the heart, by the way, if you don't know. Um, but yeah, my point was there's so much here, right? Like I don't know how long I just talked about this, but there's so much to work with here. Imagery, rhetorical like devices, cultural, religious significance. Um, it's like there's a lot here. It's not a very long poem, but it's a very good poem. And just compare it to one of these things that like there's there's very little here, and it's not poetic. Um, I don't know. There is good stuff. Like you'll come across good stuff, and if there's explicitly quotes, then I mean those are often thought provoking or engaging because they're by people who are good writers or thinkers. Um, but yeah, anyways, the focus of this video, and inshallah, this is going to become a series, is finding these good um, writers and artists on Instagram because like there's no traffic here. I mean, I think this is wrong that there's more than 3 likes if you go onto her page. She has I guess it's a decent following. I don't know how what the average what's a good following for a poet on Instagram. But she's based in Singapore, and she's the author of 3 books. One is uh, one of them is explicitly about the Ramadan nights. That it's fully based on Ramadan. Um, I'm probably gonna see if I can buy the ebooks for these because they're definitely worth the read. Anyways, this video has gone on longer than I expected it to, so we will stop there and hopefully everything worked. Because last time I tried making a video, I made it 3 times and every time it didn't work. The audio failed on me. All right, assalamu alaikum.